The most dangerous power in the world is not strength. It is not money. It is not even intelligence in the traditional sense. The most dangerous power is the ability to think in silence while everyone else wastes energy trying to be noticed. Have you ever seen that one person in a group who barely speaks, yet somehow everyone pays attention when they finally do? That silence is not weakness, it is control. And it is exactly the kind of control mastered by one of the most fascinating characters in anime, Ayanokoji Kiyotaka. On the surface, he looks like nobody special. A quiet student, average grades, no popularity. Just another face in the crowd. But here's the twist, that invisibility is intentional. He hides in plain sight, watching, studying, calculating. And when the time comes to act, he is always 10 steps ahead. But what makes him terrifying is not that he is strong, it is that no one knows what he is thinking. Imagine being in a room where everyone is trying to show off, argue, or prove something, and then there's one person, sitting quietly, unreadable. You start wondering, what is he planning? That uncertainty alone can shift the balance of power. And here is the open loop. There is one silent move Ayanokoji makes that can flip an entire situation without saying a single word. We'll get to that in a moment. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is a weapon. Observation is not passivity. Observation is dominance. And the more unseen you are, the more dangerous you become. In this video, we are not just going to admire Ayanokoji's brilliance, we are going to decode it. You will learn the psychology behind his silence, his patience, and his ability to manipulate outcomes without anyone realizing. More importantly, you will learn how to apply these strategies in your own life, whether in meetings, negotiations, or everyday interactions. By the end of this video, you will not just understand how Ayanokoji thinks, you will have the tools to think like a mastermind yourself. The kind of mindset that lets you win without showing your hand. The kind of power that makes people uneasy without you lifting a finger. So stay with me, because once you unlock this way of thinking, you will never see silence the same way again. Silence is often misunderstood. Most people think silence means weakness, awkwardness, or lack of confidence. But in reality, silence is one of the most powerful psychological weapons you can use. Why? Because silence creates mystery, and mystery creates dominance. Have you ever been in a situation where everyone is talking, trying to impress, trying to win the spotlight, yet the quietest person in the room somehow feels like the most important one? That is not an accident. That is the psychology of silence. Ayanokoji Kiyotaka is the perfect example of this. On the surface, he is nothing special, an average student, barely interacting with others, often fading into the background. But this invisibility is his strategy. While others waste energy showing off, he watches, he listens, he gathers information. And by the time anyone realizes what he's planning, it's already too late. Think about this. In almost every social interaction, people fear silence. The moment there is a pause in conversation, someone jumps in to fill it because they cannot handle the tension. But Ayanokoji, he thrives in that silence. He lets people reveal themselves, their words, their tone, their body language, he reads it all. And he says nothing until the moment is perfect. Here's the psychological secret. The one who talks less, controls more. Why? Because when you speak too much, you expose yourself, your thoughts, your weaknesses, your emotions. But when you stay silent, others project their own fears and assumptions onto you. They cannot read you, and what people cannot read, they cannot predict or control. Imagine this scenario. You're in a meeting. Everyone is pitching ideas, arguing, trying to sound smart. You say nothing at first. You let them go back and forth, exposing their thoughts and strategies. Then, when the noise settles, you deliver a single sharp observation that cuts through the chaos. Suddenly, your voice carries more weight than all the noise combined. That's the power of silence. Ayanokoji uses this constantly. He is never the loudest in the room, but he is always the one with the most information. In negotiations, silence is even deadlier. When you make an offer and then stay silent, people get uncomfortable. They start talking, just to fill the space. And in that nervous talking, they reveal their real intentions, their weaknesses, and sometimes even give away more than they planned. But here's where the genius of observation comes in. Silence is not enough, you must pair it with watching everything. Ayanokoji's true talent is that while others are distracted, he is scanning every detail. He notices body language shifts. He picks up on micro-expressions. He catches what people are trying to hide. This is why silence is stronger than talking, because silence makes space for observation. Let us pause for a question. Have you ever noticed that the quietest person in your group often seems to know the most? That's because they're listening while everyone else is leaking information. Observation is more powerful than expression. Anyone can talk. But to truly see, to notice what others miss, that is rare. And that is where real control begins. Here's a real-life trick you can start using. In your next conversation, instead of rushing to speak, just pause. Count 3 seconds before responding. During those 3 seconds, watch the other person. Notice if they lean in, shift their eyes, or change tone. Those tiny details reveal more than their words ever could. Now, let us add an open loop. Ayanokoji uses one specific silent move that completely disarms his opponents, and it has nothing to do with words. We'll uncover that in just a moment. Think of friendships. The loudest friend is often the most forgettable. But the quiet friend, the one who watches, who listens, usually ends up being the one people turn to when things get serious. Why? Because they feel that person truly sees them. Observation builds trust, while constant talking often destroys it. And in negotiations, silence forces the other side to keep revealing themselves. Imagine you're negotiating a salary. You state your number, then you go silent. The other side, uncomfortable with the pause, will often start justifying, over-explaining, sometimes even raising the offer without you asking. That is silence working for you. But there's an even deeper psychological layer. Silence unsettles people because it removes predictability. Humans crave certainty. We want to know what others think and feel. When someone is silent and unreadable, our brain fills in the gaps with fear or respect. Either way, it gives the silent person power. Ayanokoji is a master of this. His classmates never know what he is thinking. They cannot tell if he is on their side, against them, or not involved at all. This uncertainty makes them cautious. It makes them hesitate. And in strategy, hesitation is fatal. So, what can you learn from this? Start practicing silence not as weakness, but as a tool. In conversations, pause more. In meetings, speak last. In friendships, listen twice as much as you talk. And in negotiations, let the silence stretch until the other person feels the need to break it. That is where your advantage lies. By the end of this part, remember this: silence creates mystery. Mystery creates power. And observation turns that power into control. And as we move forward, you lines see how Ayanokoji takes this foundation of silence and observation and transforms it into strategies that make him untouchable. But first, let's uncover that one silent move he uses that flips the entire game without a single word. Most people believe emotions make us human. They say emotions connect us, inspire us, and give life meaning. That is true, but here is the darker truth. Emotions are also the greatest weakness in strategy. They cloud judgment, fuel impulsive reactions, and make us easy to manipulate. If silence is the first weapon of control, then detachment is the armor that makes you untouchable. Think about it. How many times have people lost everything because of anger, jealousy, pride, or fear? Wars have been started over insults. Businesses have collapsed because of ego. Relationships have been destroyed by emotional reactions. Emotion is the enemy of strategy. This is where Ayanokoji stands apart. Unlike almost everyone around him, he doesn't get pulled into emotional games. He doesn't argue out of pride. He doesn't panic when threatened. He doesn't crave recognition or approval. He is detached, cold, and checkable, and that's exactly why he wins. Let me give you a scene to imagine. Two people are playing chess. One is calm, thinking 3 moves ahead. The other is emotional, reacting to every move with frustration or excitement. Who do you think will win? The calm player, every single time. Because strategy requires distance from your own emotions and distance from the chaos around you. Here's the psychological principle. When you detach, you see reality as it is, not as your emotions distort it. Most people see through filters of fear, anger, or desire. But detachment removes those filters. And when you see clearly, you act decisively. This connects directly to Stoicism, the ancient philosophy of strength. Stoics believe that true power comes from controlling your inner world, not the outer world. You cannot stop the storm, but you can control how you respond to it. You cannot prevent betrayal, loss, or conflict, but you can detach from it, so it does not control you. Ayanokoji lives this principle. He accepts reality without emotion. He adapts, and that is why he cannot be broken. Now, let's make this practical. Imagine you're in a heated argument. Most people will get louder, angrier, and more emotional, but what if, instead, you stayed calm? What if you detached from your feelings in that moment and simply analyzed what was really happening? Instantly, the power shifts. The other person looks emotional, irrational, even weak. You, on the other hand, look in control. Detachment flips the dynamic. Let me ask you this. Have you ever noticed how the person who stays calm in chaos becomes the leader by default? That's because people trust stability. In moments of crisis, they look to the one who is not panicking. Detachment is strength others can lean on. But here's an open loop you must think about. Detachment is powerful, but it can also be dangerous. If you take it too far, you risk becoming inhuman. We'll talk about that dark side in a minute. Back to Ayanokoji. His classmates cry, argue, fight, and panic. He remains expressionless. When others get angry at betrayal, he stays neutral. When others feel despair, he keeps moving. His emotional detachment makes him unpredictable. No one can guilt him, manipulate him, or pressure him, because he doesn't react the way normal people do. That makes him terrifying. And here's the lesson for real life. The less reactive you are, the harder you are to control. Most people can be provoked with just a few words. Insults, flattery, or fear will push them into predictable behavior. But when you detach, when you refuse to give emotional responses, manipulators lose their power over you. Take negotiations as an example again. If someone insults you to lower your confidence, and you react emotionally, they win. But if you stay calm, detached, their tactics fail. Or imagine someone tries to guilt you into doing something. If you're emotionally reactive, you cave in. But if you detach, you see the manipulation for what it is and you simply say no. Here's a bold truth. The one who controls their emotions controls the game. The one who loses control becomes the game. But let's circle back to that open loop, the dark side of detachment. Emotional detachment can make you powerful, yes, but it can also isolate you. People may see you as cold, distant, even dangerous. Ayanokoji, for example, doesn't form real bonds. He uses people as tools, pieces in his strategy. That works for him, but in real life, complete detachment can cost you meaningful connections. So here's the balance. Practice detachment not as a lifestyle, but as a tool. In conflict, in negotiation, in decision-making, detach. Step back from your emotions. See things as they are, not as your feelings twist them. But in relationships, in friendships, in moments of joy, allow emotion. Because the goal isn't to be an empty shell. The goal is to be untouchable when it matters most. Let's add a quick story. Picture a soldier in battle. Bullets are flying, chaos everywhere. The soldier who panics runs into danger. The soldier who detaches, who shuts off fear, sees the battlefield clearly and makes the right move. That soldier survives. That soldier wins. Detachment is survival. By the end of this part, remember this. Emotions are powerful, but they are unreliable. They can inspire you, but they can also destroy you. Ayanokoji shows us that the highest level of control comes from stepping outside emotion, from being calm when others are chaotic. And as we move forward, we'll uncover the next level, how Ayanokoji doesn't just detach from emotion, but actively manipulates the emotions of others, turning their weaknesses into his weapons. If silence is the foundation and detachment is the armor, then patience is the sword. It is the weapon that cuts down anyone who moves too quickly. Because here's the reality, most people lose not because they are weak, but because they are impatient. Rushing destroys plans. Acting too early exposes your hand. Think of a chess game. The beginner rushes, pushing pawns forward recklessly, attacking without thought. The master, however, waits. They let the board develop. They study every move, every weakness, and then at the exact right moment they strike. One calculated move after 20 silent ones can decide the entire game. Ayanokoji embodies this perfectly. He doesn't chase after every opportunity. He doesn't reveal his strength too early. He waits, he observes, and when the perfect moment arrives, he acts with precision. It is why his enemies never see him coming, because by the time they realize he has been waiting, it's already too late. Let me ask you this. How many times in your own life have you ruined something because you couldn't wait? Maybe you rushed into a relationship and later realized you ignored the red flags. Maybe you jumped at the first job offer only to find out you could have done better if you had waited. Or maybe you lost an argument because you spoke too soon, instead of letting the other person reveal their weakness first. We all pay the price for impatience. Here's the psychology behind it. Patience is delayed gratification. It's resisting the urge for immediate results, so you can achieve greater results later. This is one of the greatest predictors of success. Studies even show that children who can delay gratification, who can wait for one candy today to get to candies tomorrow, end up more successful in life. Why? Because patience compounds. It allows you to build power quietly while others waste their energy. Anime gives us powerful metaphors for this. Think of warriors who conserve their energy until the final battle. Think of characters who hide their true abilities until the decisive moment. That's Ayanokoji, always holding back, always waiting. And then, when everyone else is exhausted, he moves and he dominates. But here's the open loop. Patience is not the same as passivity. Too much waiting can become weakness. We'll get to that in a moment. For now, let's focus on the power of timing. Timing transforms patience into victory. Imagine two swordsmen. One strikes too early, revealing his intent. The other waits half a second longer until the perfect opening appears. That half second decides who lives and who falls. Timing is everything. Let's bring this to real life. In your career, patience might mean not jumping at the first promotion, but waiting until you've built undeniable leverage. In arguments, patience means letting the other person speak too much, exposing contradictions, before you calmly dismantle their points. In money, patience means resisting the urge for quick gains, and instead letting investments grow over years. In relationships, patience means not forcing someone to change, but waiting to see their true nature revealed over time. And here's a bold truth. Those who cannot wait are always controlled by those who can. Impatient people are easy to manipulate. Dangle a small reward in front of them, and they jump. But the patient strategist, he lets others make mistakes, then collects the rewards. Let me give you a story. Imagine a hunter in the forest. If he rushes, stomping through the woods, the prey runs away. But if he waits silently, motionless, eventually the prey walks right into his sights. Patience is hunting. And life is no different. Opportunities often come not to the fastest, but to the one who waited long enough for the right opening. Now, back to the open loop, the dark side of patience. If you wait forever, you miss your chance. If you hesitate too long, opportunities vanish. This is where patience meets timing. The skill is not just waiting, but knowing when waiting must end. Ayanokoji doesn't wait endlessly. He waits until his opponent is vulnerable. Then he acts immediately. Waiting too long is cowardice. Acting too soon is recklessness. Acting at the right time, that is mastery. Let me bring it home with this. In life, people will pressure you to rush. Society tells you to hurry to succeed, hurry to prove yourself, hurry to move forward. But the truth is, rushing makes you sloppy. Great empires, great fortunes, great victories, they are not built in a hurry. They are built through patience, through quiet preparation, through striking at the perfect moment. So the lesson is this: don't confuse movement with progress. Don't confuse speed with success. The one who waits for the right moment controls the game. And as we move into the next part, we'll explore how Ayanokoji doesn't just rely on silence, detachment, and patience, but how he uses manipulation, bending people's perceptions so they play into his hands without ever realizing it. Silence gives you mystery. Detachment gives you control. Patience gives you power. But there is one more weapon that separates ordinary thinkers from masterminds: the ability to think 10 steps ahead. Most people live only one step at a time. They react. Someone insults them, they insult back. Someone offers them money, they take it without question. Someone puts an opportunity in front of them, they jump without asking, where does this lead? Ayanokoji is different. He does not play the game in front of him. He plays the game behind the game. He is not thinking about what happens if he wins the next move. He is already seeing what happens 10 moves later, when everyone else has exhausted themselves, and only he has the strength to claim victory. This is the mastermind mindset, to anticipate not just one reaction, but an entire chain of reactions. Imagine dropping a single stone into water. Most people see the first ripple. The strategist sees the 10th ripple before the stone even touches the surface. Here's an example from daily life. Let's say you argue with your boss. Most people only think of the immediate step. I spoke my truth. But a strategist thinks, if I say this, what will my boss think tomorrow? How will this affect my promotion 6 months from now? If I push too hard now, will it close doors in the future? That is long-term thinking. Now, let's open a loop. There's a reason most people can't think this way. We'll get to that in a moment. But first, consider this. Ayanokoji doesn't just plan, he designs outcomes. He understands that every choice triggers another choice. Every reaction creates another opportunity. He sets traps not for today, but for weeks later. He sacrifices small victories to secure larger ones, like a chess master giving away a pawn to control the entire board. And this is where the dark truth comes in. Most people are predictable. Their emotions make them easy to manipulate. You already know how most people will react to anger, to fear, to flattery. Ayanokoji uses this predictability. He doesn't just plan his moves, he plans your moves, and then punishes you for walking straight into them. Let's connect this to real life. In business, those who think 1 step ahead survive. But those who think 10 steps ahead dominate. They don't just create a product, they think about market shifts, customer psychology, competitors' weaknesses, government regulations, and cultural trends years into the future. That's why some companies die in 5 years, while others rule for decades. In personal life, this thinking is just as powerful. Most people enter relationships with no plan. They don't ask, where will this lead in 5 years? They don't think, if I behave this way, how will it affect trust in the long run? Instead, they react to emotions in the moment. The mastermind knows that the small choices today build the foundation or the collapse of tomorrow. Here's the psychology. Your brain loves shortcuts. It wants immediate answers, immediate comfort. This is why most people can't think long term. It's uncomfortable. It takes discipline. But if you train yourself to think beyond the present, you gain a perspective others don't have, and with perspective comes power. Now, back to that open loop. Why most people can't think this way? It's because they don't like uncertainty. To think 10 steps ahead, you must embrace uncertainty. You must accept that you can't control every variable, but you can prepare for most of them. Ayanokoji doesn't need certainty, he builds flexible strategies that adapt no matter what happens. That's why he always looks calm. He doesn't need the world to behave perfectly, because he's already prepared for chaos. Let me tell you a story. Imagine 2 generals on the battlefield. One is shouting orders, reacting to every small change. The other is calm, standing still. Why? Because his plan already includes the enemy's reactions. Every scream, every move, every desperate attempt, the calm general has already accounted for it. When the battle ends, he wins, not because he fought harder, but because he thought further. Now here's a shocking truth. If you cannot think ahead, you will always become part of someone else's plan. Someone else will be 10 steps ahead of you, and you won't even realize you're a piece on their board. That's the danger of short-term thinking. You become a pawn in someone else's strategy. So how can you apply this in your life? Start small. When you make a decision, don't just ask, what happens now? Ask, what happens next? And what happens after that? Train your brain to see chains of consequences. In conversations, anticipate not just the reply, but how that reply will shape the next 5 minutes. In your career, think not just about the next paycheck, but where this path leads in 5 years. In your habits, ask not just what it feels like today, but who it will make you in 10 years. Here's the promise. If you practice this, you will gain an aura of foresight. People will think you are lucky, or that you always know what to say, but it won't be luck. It will be because you already saw what was coming while they were still focused on the present. And remember, thinking 10 steps ahead doesn't mean you predict everything perfectly. It means you prepare for possibilities that others ignore. That is why Ayanokoji is untouchable. He does not react to the present, he bends the present to serve his future. So the lesson is simple but difficult. Stop living move to move. Start thinking 10 moves ahead. Because in the game of life, the one who thinks further controls the one who thinks only of now. And as we move to the next part, we'll dive into the final pillar, how Ayanokoji uses controlled deception, masking his strength, hiding his motives, and turning invisibility itself into the greatest power of all. There is a level of power higher than money, higher than physical strength, higher even than respect. It is the power of invisible influence. Most people want credit, they want recognition. They want to be seen as the leader, but Ayanokoji knows a dark truth. The moment people see your power, they also prepare to resist it. The loudest person invites enemies. The silent manipulator creates victories while staying invisible. Think about it. In school, in business, in politics, the face of leadership is rarely the true source of control. The most powerful players are often the ones you never see. They guide, they influence, they pull strings, and then they step back into the shadows while someone else takes the credit or the blame. That is exactly how Ayanokoji operates. He doesn't need the spotlight. In fact, he avoids it. He lets others believe they are in control, while he quietly shapes the battlefield to his design. He is the chess player who never touches the board but makes sure every piece moves exactly where he wants it to. Let me open a loop here. There is a reason invisible influence is more dangerous than direct power. We'll come back to that in a moment. First, let's look at why this works. Human beings are wired to notice what is visible. We pay attention to the speaker, the leader, the loud voice in the room. But the quiet advisor, the person who just observes, they slip under the radar. Nobody prepares defenses against them, and because of that, they can push events in any direction. This is why Ayanokoji lets other characters take credit for victories he designed. Because credit is a burden. Once you're visible, you're a target. But when you're invisible, you can act freely. You don't need recognition. You don't need applause. You need results. And results without visibility, that's real power. Here's the psychology. Control without visibility is control without resistance. If people don't know you are influencing them, they cannot fight back. They will even defend the very decisions you planted in their minds. This is why the most powerful persuasion feels like their idea, not yours. Now, let's close that loop. Why is invisible influence more dangerous than direct power? Because direct power exposes you. A king can be overthrown, a CEO can be fired. A loud leader can be challenged, but the shadow strategist, you cannot fight what you cannot see. That is why hidden manipulation outlives open authority. Let's take a real-world example. In corporate environments, the most effective operators are often not the CEOs. It's the advisors, the consultants, the strategists behind the scenes. They don't sit in the front row, they whisper into the right ears. And when things go wrong, the public face takes the fall, while the invisible strategist remains untouchable. Or think about politics. History shows us kings who were overthrown, presidents who were assassinated, but the advisors, the counselors, the strategists, they remained, because nobody ever truly saw their hand. Now, you might be asking, how can you apply this without being manipulative in a toxic way? The lesson here is subtle. It's not about controlling people against their will. It's about influencing outcomes without needing recognition. For example, at work, instead of fighting for credit, try guiding the direction of the team quietly. Plant the right idea in a meeting, let others repeat it, and watch it spread. You don't need to own it, you just need it to succeed. In friendships, instead of arguing loudly to prove you're right, guide the conversation gently, let the other person feel like they came to the conclusion themselves. They'll trust you more, and you still get the outcome you wanted. In leadership, instead of demanding loyalty, create an environment where people feel empowered, and their lines follow your lead naturally even if they never realize you're the one shaping the culture. This is exactly what Ayanokoji teaches us. The highest level of control is when people don't even realize they are being controlled. They believe they are free, while walking exactly where you want them to go. Here's a story to make it stick. Imagine two generals again. One stands in front, giving speeches, waving flags, taking credit for every move. The other stays in the background, quiet, unnoticed. Yet every soldier moves according to his unseen design. When the first general is struck down, chaos follows. But the second general, he is untouchable. He never needed the spotlight, his power was already secured in the shadows. And here's the shocking truth. Most people will never train this skill. They will always chase attention, credit, and validation, which makes them predictable, vulnerable, and easy to manipulate. But if you learn to detach from recognition, to stop needing applause, you gain the ability to influence without resistance. So here's the takeaway. True power is not being the star of the show. True power is being the director, the one who decides what the audience sees, while remaining unseen. That's why Ayanokoji never seeks attention. His invisibility is his shield, and his invisibility is his sword. By mastering invisible influence, you free yourself from envy, from attack, from resistance. You no longer fight for recognition, you quietly build outcomes. And when the dust settles, others may hold the trophy, but you hold the power. And as we move to the conclusion, remember this: silence, detachment, patience, foresight, and invisible influence. These are the 5 pillars of a mastermind mindset. And if you can practice even one of them, you will start to feel the difference. But if you master all 5, you will become untouchable. In the end, the most dangerous weapon is not a sword, not wealth, not status. It is a mind sharpened to mastery. Ayanokoji shows us that silence can command more fear than shouting. That emotional detachment can protect you from manipulation. That patience can win battles no strength ever could. That foresight can outplay enemies before they even know the game has begun. And that invisible influence, guiding without being seen, is the highest level of control. These 5 pillars are not just animatrix, they are real. They exist in business rooms, in politics, in everyday life: the quiet observer, the calm strategist, the patient planner, the unseen manipulator. These are the ones who shape the world while the rest are distracted by noise. So here is your challenge. Ask yourself, where can you use silence instead of words? Where can you let go of emotion and choose clarity? Where can you wait instead of rush? Where can you plan further ahead than anyone else dares? And where can you influence without ever needing the credit? Because if you can apply even one of these, you'll notice the shift. People will treat you differently. Situations will bend toward you. Power will come quietly, naturally. But if you can master all 5, you won't just live in the world. You'll begin to shape it. And that is the true psychology of absolute control. If this resonated with you, then this is only the beginning. Subscribe now, because on this channel we go deeper into the art of power, control, and self-mastery. Every video is another piece of the puzzle that will transform the way you think and the way you move through life. Most people live reactively, loud, emotional, impatient, short-sighted, desperate for recognition. Do not be like most people. Become the exception. Remember, the greatest power is not seen, it is felt. It is the silent force in the room, the invisible mind directing the flow of events. That can be you if you choose to learn, to apply, to master. So take the next step, subscribe, and start building a mind so strong it will scare people.